See, there's no God. Reason that he creates people with the purpose of sending them to hell, but I have to accept that it's their relationship. I can't force anything onto my children. So I saw this lady on TikTok and I was just watching some of her videos. One of the questions that she asked, well, I think a lot of people have these questions and I think a lot of people ask them, but they're not really getting, answers to them, or maybe they're just not liking the answers. I don't know, but let's discuss it together. Check out this first video.
I have a question for Christians that believe in hell and also believe in an all-knowing, all-loving, all-powerful God. Jeremiah 1:5 says that before you were in your mother's womb, before you formed, I knew you. So before God forms this human in its mother's womb, does God know if that human is going to go to hell or going to go to heaven? If God doesn't know, then God is not all-knowing. And if that God does know and chooses to create that human anyways, he is intentionally creating humans that will suffer for all of eternity. And that individual does not actually have free will because that God knew ahead of time when he was creating them that they would end up going to hell. And that person did not have a choice in that matter because it was already decided as soon as God formed them in their mother's womb. You cannot have an all-knowing, all-powerful, all-loving God and hell.
Yeah, this is a really big, complicated question, but it's an important one to really consider, thoughtfully. The question asked is, and I'm just going to summarize it, if God knows everything and he knows who will reject him and they go to hell if they reject him, doesn't that reason that he creates people with the purpose of sending them to hell? First, it's true that God is all-knowing. 1 John 3:20 tells us that. And Jeremiah 1:5 does tell us that God knows us even before we were born in our mother's womb. But we have to remember something that's really critical about who God is and what he wants for each of us. God loves everyone. I know that's hard to believe for some people, and he wants everyone to be saved. Verses like John 3:16 and 1 Timothy, they tell us and show us that God really does want all people to come to know him. He wants them to know the truth and to be saved. However, and this is a pretty big however, God gives us free will. I know to some people that sounds like a cop-out. I get it. I'm being honest with you. Sometimes as a Christian, I kind of wish there wasn't free will. There's people in my family that I wish would accept the Lord. I can't force them to, and I can't beg them to, and I can't make them. And the truth is even as a parent, I want my kids to know the Lord, but I have to accept that it's their relationship. I can't force anything onto my children. It has to be something they do on their own because they do have free will, and it's not a cop-out. If I was being honest, I actually think it makes things a little more difficult. But then I have to remember that free will also means that I have the choice to love him. I do get the choice to accept him. And that's pretty cool too. So it works both ways. The ability to choose God. He didn't make us robots who are programmed to always do the right thing. Just think how great the world would be if that was true. From the very beginning with Adam and Eve, God gave humans the choice to obey or to disobey. Why? Why did he do that? Because love requires a choice. It does in everything in our lives. If we didn't have free will, we couldn't genuinely love God or, for that fact, anyone else. It comes with a choice. I remember this movie. It used to be called, I think it was in the 90s. It was called Love Potion Number 9. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but I want to show you a clip of it.
Paul and Diane were dedicated professionals.
I'm a biochemist.
I'm a comparative psychobiologist.
Why?
Who had everything in common.
Hello. You have 0 messages. You have 0 messages.
They were able to communicate with all species.
This is bad. Bad. Bad.
Except one. Their own.
I'll go home with you tonight if you can answer one question correctly.
Okay.
Who designed this top?
I wouldn't know.
Bye now.
Until one day, they found the solution to their problem.
It's assault. It affects the vocal cords directly.
It's Romeo. He's trying to break through the wall.
Now, in the name of science, Paul and Diane are about to begin an experiment. All they have to do is speak.
So, you like those radios?
Simply irresistible.
It doesn't matter what they say.
Excuse me.
You are the most beautiful woman I have ever seen in my life.
Simply irresistible.
They just have to speak.
So, how do you like those pretzels?
Oh, baby.
You have 67 messages.
Simply irresistible.
Okay, I'll go home with you and I'll be everything you've ever wanted if you can answer one question correctly.
What?
How do you synthesize a methylated alkaloid?
I don't know.
Bye now.
God doesn't want that. He doesn't want us to be tricked into loving him or made to love him or forced to love him, nor to trust in him. Free will isn't a cop-out. It really isn't. It's love. To give us free will, God gave it to us because he first loved us. So does this mean God makes people just to send them to hell? No. No is the answer. God doesn't desire anyone to go to hell. In fact, Ezekiel 33 tells us he takes no pleasure in the deaths of the wicked. That's not what he wants. Hell is a consequence of the rejection that we have chosen because he gave us the free will. Rejecting God, not something that God forces on us. He doesn't want that. It's like this. God shines a light for everyone to see through creation, through the Bible, through Jesus, etc. But it's up to each person to walk towards the light or to turn away from it. You could stay in darkness if you choose. That's okay. But every decision we make in life has a consequence. God knows the choices people will make, but that doesn't mean he causes them to make that choice. He doesn't make them choose to reject him. He actually wants the complete opposite. But just because God knows the outcome, it doesn't mean he's unfair or he's unloving. It's more like, more like a parent who knows their child might make a really bad choice or decision in their life. And let's be honest, no matter how great of a parent you are, no matter how wonderful we give our kids opportunities, no matter how perfect we do it, and none of us are going to do it perfectly, the reality is all of our children have the potential to turn out wrong, to make really bad decisions that could affect the rest of their life. They also have the potential to do amazing things. I mean, for all we know, one of you could have the next president. Who knows? Or we got the next doctor that is going to cure cancer. I don't know. See, that's the whole thing. As a parent, we know that each one of our children have potential, but we don't always know the choices they're going to make as they get older. We try to steer them in the right direction. But at the end of the day, it is their choice. God creates everyone with love and offers salvation to all. If people reject that, that's their choice. It's not God's design, but it's still their choice. God doesn't make people to go to hell, but he does allow us the freedom to choose. Now, whether we will accept or reject him, that's on us. Knowing every choice we make in life will have consequences. Good choices, good consequences. Bad choices, bad consequences. God values real love and real choice. I know it's hard to hear, but it's true. Let's check out another video this lady did, and I really want you to listen to what she's saying.
Something I wish more believers or Christians, religious people understood about non-believers is this. Just because I don't believe in whatever God or religion it is that you follow doesn't mean that I'm claiming to have all of the answers. As a non-believer, primarily what I'm saying is I'm okay with not knowing. The answers to a lot of questions for me, things like where did all of this come from, what happens when we die, etc., is I don't know yet. I think there's a chance that some of these things we will figure out, and some of them I may never know, but I'm okay with that. And more importantly, I am unwilling to start believing something else that I don't feel I have good reason to believe just because it fills in the blank and gives me an answer that makes me feel a little bit better. I would much rather learn how to cope with reality and cope with not knowing things than come up with a coping mechanism that isn't aligned with reality. Being a non-believer doesn't mean I have all the answers, but I'm okay with that.
I have no issue with most of what this lady has said. I do understand that there are a lot of questions about life for non-believers and for believers. Non-believers don't have all the answers. I grant you that. But this is my issue with what she is saying. Oftentimes, if Christians don't have an answer to a particular question that's being asked about God or science or something, non-believers often use this as an opportunity to kind of say things like, see, there's no God. Or if you're a Christian and you make a mistake, you do something wrong, they use it as an opportunity to say, see, your God's not that great. Or where's your faith? Or you're not really having faith in your God, are you right now? They begin to question our relationship with God. Non-believers have a standard, I think, for Christians that if the tables were turned, well, they would consider it to be unfair. I look at videos like this all the time, and it fascinates me because I know if I switch the tables, they would call me all kinds of things, and they wouldn't be very kind to me at all. So this is my question to this lady. Are you willing to offer the same grace that you're asking for to believers if they don't have all the answers to all your questions? Are you willing to be just as kind to them as you're asking us to be to you? See, the Bible is not a science book. Yes, it has things in it that we can then utilize in science, and we can gain some information and get more knowledge about it using science. But at the end of the day, it's not a science book. The Bible is not a history book. I know that rocks people's world when I say that. But again, it has history in it. And as we search and research and archaeologists dig, we learn that there's history there. And most every time I've ever looked, it shows that the Bible's actually pretty accurate. Actually, it's really accurate, but it is not a history book still. See, the Bible is a book about a relationship. It's a love story between God and mankind and how things went wrong and how it can all go right sometimes. It is about how a deep and meaningful relationship with God can happen and how God wants that relationship with us. He desires it. And the truth is God is still a little bit of a mystery. There is so much I don't know, you don't know, no one knows, nor do they understand about God, how he does things in life and why he chooses to do some of the things he does. He wouldn't be God if I understood it all. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with not having all the answers. You know, she is using the word yet. And she is correct as a non-believer and as a believer. There are so many things we don't yet know. You know, I don't even think, if I was being honest, when we get to heaven and I can stand before an all-knowing God, an all-powerful God, I don't think the yet answers will even come towards life's mysteries. I think even in heaven, when we're there with the Lord, in his presence, there are going to still be some things I don't have the answer to. You know why? Because he's still going to be God there. There's still going to be a mystery to him. And God is always going to have that mystery. And again, I'm okay with it. You know, the truth is this. I do think it's funny. She thinks God or Christianity or believers or however she wants to put it is us filling in the blank, as she put it, because it makes me feel a little bit better. Oh, honey, that is so not true. Does it make me feel secure? Yes, it does. But I think it oftentimes actually opens up the door for more blanks because I realize there's so much more that I just can't wrap my brain around. I don't know about her, but last I checked, I'm definitely living in reality. I go out there and check the grocery prices right now. But the truth is, actually, I kind of think I live a little bit more in a realistic reality than she does. Why? Because I realize there is more to life than what these two eyes can see, even with correction. And the prophet Isaiah said this in chapter 6. He tells us that rebellious people have ears that cannot hear, and eyes that cannot see, and hearts that cannot understand. In Ephesians, we are encouraged to see with the eyes of our heart, to see things with God's perspective. Let me give you an example of what I mean. I'm dyslexic. Growing up as a young 7-year-old little girl, I had teachers telling me things like I wasn't teachable or I'm dyslexic. Growing up as a young 7-year-old little girl, I had teachers telling me I wasn't teachable. I would drop out of school and never even finish high school. Or they told me things like I should marry someone that wants to support me because that was the only way I was ever going to be taken care of. I had teachers all the way up until high school tell me to change my dreams or to tell me that my dreams were unrealistic. College was never going to happen for me, is some of the things they would tell me. It wasn't even an option. That was just the tip of the iceberg of all the things they had said to me for years. What people have thought of my future and what they thought about the things that I could and couldn't do, well, let's just say it's never been really good. And I can kind of understand why they said that. Reading and writing were just not my strengths. It's something I've had to work really hard at. It was not something that came naturally for me. I mean, if I'm being honest, I am so thankful for spell check and Grammarly, totally my best friend. I love and I'm thankful for editors. But if I lived in the reality of what all those things that have been said over me, well, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. I wouldn't be here. I would have never written for magazines. I wouldn't even tried it. I would have never published in books. Wouldn't have been something I would have attempted. There is so much that I would have never even done or tried in my life if I lived in the reality that this lady's talking about. If I believed in that kind of reality of the limitations and the circumstances that surrounded me, well, dyslexia is my reality. I can't change that. I mean, let's be real. After all of that was reality for me. But I also have another reality, the one that she's not considering, the one the Bible talks about, and it's God's reality. It's his perspective, what God said about me and what God can do with a willing and obedient heart is amazing. This is why I say God is my security. He didn't fill the blanks in, but he's definitely someone that I know I am secure in his hands. On my own, I would fall back into this world's reality of who they think I am. But God reminds me daily who I am in him, through him and with him. When I chose years ago to hand God my dyslexia and allow him to use it, that's when reality shifted for me. It shifted in a dramatic way. And that's also when reality truly shifted, not because of my circumstances, not because my limitations changed, not because my dyslexia just magically vanished. None of that changed actually for me, but because I chose to see myself through the eyes of a God that sees me totally different. His perspective goes beyond what the world says is possible for me. His perspective goes beyond the labels and the limitations. Actually, it kind of shows him off a little bit. Others put all these things on me. Not only do other people put limitations on us, we put them on ourselves. And God says, I can still do something if you're willing and obedient. So when I say that God is my security, it's not some emotional crutch or a fill in the blank kind of thing or making me, feel a little bit better with shifting my reality. It's not there for my comfort. It's truly a daily reminder that my identity, my worth, my potential are not defined by this world or its standards or its reality. It is rooted in who God says I am and what he can do through me, despite my struggles, despite my past, despite my flaws. And maybe that's the real answer to this really big question. Why believe? Well, because in a world that is constantly trying to tell us what we can't do, what we can do, who we are and who we are not, and why we'll never measure up. Well, God invites us into a reality where we are seen, where we are known, and most importantly, where we are loved exactly as we are, just with the heart change. And from that place, He empowers us to become so much more than we ever could even imagine was possible. So no, I don't have all the answers to all the questions that everyone has when it comes to God. But I know this, life with God opens up a new kind of reality, a better reality, a reality that is full of hope and purpose and the possibility of redemption. That's the reality I choose to live in. And it's one that, well, everyone, including her, can step into as well. It doesn't matter your background or what you come from. God is open to everybody, and He gives us a different reality, not because it makes us feel a little bit better. Actually, I think it challenges us, but He gives us a different reality because we begin to see ourselves through the eyes of our Creator, the one who loves us abundantly. I hope this helped you a little bit.